I see. Oh, I see all the panelists are here already. We're just waiting for the moderator. So, hi everyone. Can we? Yeah, I see you guys. Do you guys mind, like one by one, just unmuting, give a little bit of introduction about each other while we wait for Marcus to arrive? Oh, Imran's having connectivity issues, I guess. So, Tianing, would you like to start first?
Yeah, sure. I can go first. So hi everyone. I'm Ning. So I'm currently working in Google as an account manager. So prior to Google, I was studying accounting and finance in Singapore, Institute of Management (SIM). And after I graduate, I worked 1 year full time actually with Isaac. Really something outside of what I study. I was working full time as a marketing director of the national entity in Singapore. And after I went out to venture more into media, into digital marketing, and that's how I got to where I am now. Nice to meet everyone.
Right, thank you so much. Okay, can we go on to Zhihui to give a bit of introduction?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Zhihui. I'm the co-founder of Skillio. Yeah, so for me, I think unlike everyone else in the panel, I'm still studying. I'm in my 3rd year of university in Singapore studying psychology. Yeah, so I think I'll talk more about Skillio later. But really, the problem that we are trying to solve is to bridge the gap between the teachable moments that students go through in educational institutions and the value that they bring to organizations that they join in terms of soft skills. Yeah, so feel free to ask me questions and look forward to interacting with everyone else.
All right, so Sharon, could you give a brief introduction about yourself?
Hi everybody. My name is Sharon. I am actually from the Singapore Economic Development Board, or EDB for short. Just a very quick intro, EDB is essentially a government agency. We look after the economy, so we work with a lot of companies about how they can partner Singapore and use it as a base to kind of grow. And of course, in that process to really interact, hire, and help to train the community in Singapore. I'm an Isaac alumni as well. So go all the way back to Isaac in NTU and then all the way through to the national level and different programs from there. So very happy to be here. And I guess we'll be sharing more in the coming few minutes.
Right, that's so cool. Like we already have 2 Isaac alumni here. That's actually really, really interesting. All right, Imran, it's your turn.
Hi everyone, my name is Imran. I'm from Shopback, Singapore. I'm a proud Isaac alumni as well. So little piece of trivia, Sharon and I served on the Isaac Singapore board for 2 years when I was the NUS chapter president. And then when I was on the national committee, she happened to be the president of Isaac Singapore for both of those years. But I think it's less about us, and today's session is more about the career. I was also curious if anyone here in this audience is looking for a job. If that's you, maybe you can type a yes. Just want to have a sense how many of you are doing that right now. Job, internship, you're applying. I think the story that I could share today is how during the worst economic crisis of our time, I was looking for a job after being an entrepreneur for 10 years. And then I found a dream job in a Singapore-founded company that is Asia's largest rewards and discovery network, in a dream job leading a country team in the marketing department. And how I applied to about 265 companies in order to get to this point. And I would love to share that. Like, I think it's not about the headlines and the glory, but I'd be more than happy to share some of this nitty gritty and how did all the dots connect for me, and how it could connect for you as well. So I'm really looking forward to the questions that you guys have to ask, because I think that's the most important thing from today's session. And otherwise, it's just going to be our stories that may not be so interesting for you.
Absolutely. That is so many applications. I can't imagine even. Wow, that's actually crazy. I think we have Marcus in at the moment. would you mind, if you can hear me, would you mind unmuting and turning on your camera? Ah, all right. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Hi, how are you? Sorry, I was in, but I was in the wrong session, but I was in. Sorry for that. I was there as an participant, and I enjoyed very much your moderation. So well done, Soprano. Yeah, Imran, listening to you, of course. Nice to meet you again. You're probably just across the building here at I-71. Shihui, nice to meet you. I met Sharon and Ning before, so I know Sharon has already done her introduction. Shihui, you all as well. Imran, did you want to add anything, or you want to wait for the main stage later on?
I've already shared.
Okay, Ning,
Yeah.
are you already done?
We've all introduced
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, apologies for that. So welcome to this panel discussion. My name is Marcus Leo. If you're an ISACer, you can call me Leo. If you're a non-ISACer, you can call me Marcus. All ISACers will understand these names. Why have they chosen me as a moderator? I'm not so sure. Everyone in this panel is equally qualified, I guess. My background is that I've been the former president of ISAC International many, many years ago. So I met some like Imran and Ning, I believe, earlier in this life. Nowadays, I basically run a portfolio career, and I will explain to you later what that means. After studying marketing and human resources at a university in Germany, I joined ISAC full-time, and then I joined Mercedes-Benz, and I followed this through to going to Australia. I worked on 4 continents. I worked in over 30 countries, and I have been the chief marketing officer of Rolls-Royce as well as of Airbus. But all of that was not enough. I decided to leave and run my own company, as some of the panelists here in this esteemed round as well. So that's enough about me. We really want to talk about career. So I would love to start with Sharon. Sharon, probably some of the participants have studied your CV on LinkedIn. It's a very impressive LinkedIn. It sounds like everything was planned and it worked according to plan. Can you tell us through a little bit within the next 2 minutes and simply share a few vulnerabilities where you actually felt like, I'm really not sure whether this will work, but I take a leap of faith here?
Thanks, Leo. Yeah, so I think LinkedIn, okay, it will always look amazing. But for me personally, I think it was really a lot of junctures of kind of making that decision, and these decisions will probably look pretty risky to myself or the people around me. So just a bit of context, I actually came from an engineering background in NTU. But thanks to the ISAC experience and a lot of the involvement from there, it really got me interested to kind of go into the management world. I actually applied overseas to an ISAC internship program. Started off as an intern in Taiwan. It's a small local management consulting firm. So that already in the first place, to most people, would be like, you got good grades from engineering, just go out there, get a decent, well-paying job. Why are you taking a risk? Why are you jumping into a totally new environment and it's not even practicing engineering? That was the first point. Subsequently, while I stayed on with the company, they decided to expand to China, and they said, hey, we need somebody to go to this new place and basically set everything up. I didn't have that experience, but the company was open enough to say, Sharon, do you want this opportunity? And I was like, okay, I haven't worked in China before. Again, it's a different type of business environment, different type of job function. But to me, it was like, maybe not, but well, I'm already overseas. And, let's jump right in and do the best and see what I can get out of it. And even from there, after spending about 2 years in Shanghai, kind of deciding, I've kind of reached a point where I wanted to challenge myself more and in a different manner. Didn't really want to stay in that environment, but to look for something new. I actually left my job in Shanghai, came back to Singapore, had no job, but basically talked to people during that period of time, tried out some part-time stints, volunteer stints. And I guess I was fortunate enough that with the Isaac Network, I got in touch with an alumni who was working at EDB, and came to understand a bit more about the role of government in the management field, in the management world, and then ended up in EDB. And I've been here for, I think, 7 to 8 years already. So it's definitely not linear, and it was really at sometimes quite scary, because it really isn't the conventional kind of a pathway. But I think for me, what really helped is that, at the end of the day, it's really about doing the best that I can, and trying to get the most out of it. And I think that has really kind of brought me to where I am today. Yeah.
Sharon, thank you for sharing that with us. I would like to go to you, Ning. You have a very different background and different career path. You also joined the National Committee, or the MC, after finishing your studies, but then you chose a different path. Can you fill us in a little bit? And what were the vulnerabilities you had to face during these times? And I would like to remind you to keep it to 2 minutes so we have enough time for questions later on.
Yep, sure. I'll keep it as concise as possible. So I was from an accounting background, right? And then I would say that my first take at marketing was when Isaac provided me that opportunity. So back then, I still remember that when I was in Isaac, it was a lot of hard work, I would say, and perseverance through, because you wouldn't know that what you are doing is right. And, at that stage of your life, when all your friends have graduated with an accounting and finance degree, they are at Big Fours, all the big banks, and you're just like dealing with all the marketing stuff that you don't even know about. So I guess that back then it was where I really kind of shifted my mindset a lot to being more proactive in life. In general, really tapping into my network as well to find out more just about something that I'm not really familiar with, and I'm ready to pivot as well. So the message that I also want to bring across is that if you are doing something different, or you plan to do something different, do it, but also be prepared to put in the hours for it, and really be comfortable with the uncomfortable, I would say, and be ready to pivot and to flex, and to always be resourceful and work hard for what you aim to do or where you want to go to. Even if it means that, like what Sharon mentioned, that it might not be a linear path, but at any stage of your time, you want to pivot or you want to change your path, right? Be sure that this is where you want to go, and you put in the hard work and effort for it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing this, Ning. Yes, hard work, play hard, party hard as well. From time to time, I guess. Thanks for sharing. And dear participants, please ask questions now. You can ask any question to us, as we already have a few. Thank you. Yes, Nicholas, you are asking a lot of questions, which is great. Keep on going. And in the meantime, I would like to ask you, Imran, to share a little bit of your very, very interesting career path. We have been knowing each other for a while, so I would describe you as a serial entrepreneur. At the same time, you described yourself as, for the longest time, you thought about yourself, you were non-employable. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so I think when I went into university, I was looking for opportunities to build my own business. And that's actually when I came across Isaac. So when I found Isaac, I said, wow, this is like my playground. I went in, I said, hey, give me all the company meetings, right? Every single company meeting, I volunteer. I'll skip class, I'll skip lecture, I'll skip tutorials, I'll skip project meetings, and I just went company meeting after company meeting. I took up the portfolio of doing what we call exchange and sponsorships or BD and At that time we were servicing global partners like DHL and Electrolux and ABN and all that. And I had the privilege being a second, first year, third year student going into APAC offices and talking to heads of APAC HR. So to me, it has never been about looking for a job or a CV. It's always been about, hey, how do I maximize my experience? And I think maybe related to what Nicholas is asking, right? It's not about trying to find a job that you can just fill. It's about looking for a fit. And for me, I always thought that it's going to be running my own business, and I was running my business for a good 9+ years, various businesses. And the truth is, business is very difficult. Went through a lot of different failures, debt, blah blah blah, partnership failures. Yeah, I know. I mean, anything you could think of in terms of going bad in the business, I've probably experienced it. And where I am today with a company called Shopback is that I was really asking myself, what's that next step for me? If I had certain plateau in my own personal journey that I felt as a small business entrepreneur, what would that be? And Shopback happens to be one of the fastest growing companies in Singapore. Sharon talked about the government playing an important part. We are part of the Singapore family. Temasek invested, blah 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 blah. Singapore founded. We go into any new market, we are number one within a year. And there's just so many new markets to go to. There's so many places that we're going to grow. Even with COVID, we're COVID-proof. So when I was looking at it, I was actually looking at it from a point of view of an entrepreneur and an investor. I'm going to invest my life. I'm going to invest my time. I'm going to invest my energy. Where would I invest it? And I think that would be the question I would throw to anyone here looking for a career or a job. What actually are you looking for? What kind of investor are you? Are you looking to just go into a safe investment and get dividends? Are you going to look into a growth company? Are you going to look into somewhere in between? Because those outcomes that you define will define what you are going to apply for and then get, right? And it will also dictate the kind of risk reward, the kind of remuneration, the kind of commitment required, right? I'm in office right now because we are running.
Imran,
sorry,
2 minutes.
Sorry.
2 minutes.
Yeah. So let me cut it short now.
Please finish.
So what I would say is, you got to kind of figure out what you want first, and then I think the rest will follow. And I think it's about a fit, rather than trying to find that shiny job out.
Awesome sharing, and thank you for really sharing your personal story as well. Shihui, you are a student as we speak, but at the same time, you decided to take on the burden of being an entrepreneur. Can you fill us in a little bit and share your vulnerabilities and where you're always sure this is it, next step? Or do you ask yourself sometimes on a Saturday afternoon when you're not in a video conference, why am I doing all of this at the same time?
I think I just ended my exams like last week. And I still remember last week, we had like a client submission to submit at the same time, like my exam. So I think that's something that I've grown to deal with and manage as I become a student entrepreneur. So I think I'll share like a story of like how I got started on this journey in the first place. So very unexpectedly, I met my other co-founder at school camp, orientation camp. So we were both talking about things that we were passionate about, what I wanted to do in the future. And somehow, right, the things that we talk about resonated with each other a lot. Yeah, so that's when we realized that, okay, why not we start doing something like this early, right? We didn't know whether there was like product market fit. We didn't know whether this was something that would really work out. But it started as a passion project back in the first year of university. And after working on it for a while, we had people who wanted to pay us for a product, and that was when we realized that, actually, maybe we are onto something. And honestly, throughout this whole journey, there's always like uncertainty, not just the product, right? But asking myself, is this something that I want to do in the long term? And I think one advice I would give to myself also, and all the delegates out there would be to then choose clarity over certainty. So let me elaborate. So I think the future is not really like known to anyone. Even people of like higher authority or like working adults out there. I think we have spoken to a lot of people, and especially after like COVID-19, there's always a certain level of uncertainty as much as you can predict. So I think like clarity, right, is not really knowing like everything about like what you want to do, but also knowing what you don't yet know. Yeah, and that's something that I really learned along the way, because after meeting people and even in this panel of people who are working adults, I think it's very important for us as young people to then be able to be honest and confess like what you're not so clear about, and then find ways to figure this out and communicate this clarity or lack of clarity to others during like your interviews or like when speaking to people like what you want to do. Yeah, and I believe that a lot of this clarity comes from a lot of choices that I make. So sometimes I'm not very sure whether it's a good choice or not, but sometimes I make the choice anyway, right? I make the best choice at a certain point of time. But after making the choice, then be intentional about then like not it's iterative and the change, it just gets clearer and clearer. The internal locus that gives me form motivation and purpose. So it might not do like this startup, but all in university are me to then develop soft skills from peers or like people around me or like my youth, right? Youth or people who are like slightly younger than me. So those are the decisions that I made. It might not have been the best on hindsight, but I think those small choices were those that allowed me to really discover what I know about myself and what I don't know about myself. Yeah, so I think like career care in itself is a choice as well, and these little things have really allowed me to be clearer. But I'm not the clearest that I can be, definitely. There are a lot of doubts, but I think I've learned to embrace it along the way.
Wonderful sharing, Shui. So what you shared with us is follow your passion. I hear that. Also choose clarity about certainty. And what I really liked about what you shared with us is that you seem to be on a journey to get to know yourself and be true to yourself. Is that fair to say?
Definitely. Yeah, it's always it has to be a constant reminder, definitely, to myself every time.
I would like to use that as a lead into the next question. Sharon, maybe I ask you to give us your thoughts. You and I, we are from a slightly different generation than the rest in the panel here. We are more mature and know so much more about life, and we need more sleep probably as well. When you started, was it also about passion, following my passion, getting to know myself and do what I really love to do? Or was it more the traditional way, which probably some of our students on the panel face as well when they talk to their peers? What should I do? Where should I go? Which company should I join? Should I go into a startup? What were your questions and challenges you had to deal with at the time? And then you decided, obviously, as an engineer, to go into a managerial position. Can you share a bit of that with us?
Yep. I think definitely there was an element of passion. I mean, I still kind of consider myself a geek today. So the technical stuff in engineering is still fascinating. But I think it was seeing the other side and the possibilities within the business world that made me sit up and say, hey, I think I can do this. It looks interesting. I have seen seniors who have kind of taken this path before. So yeah, I think I have a chance to kind of do that. But I think it's also very normal to kind of come up against the kind of traditional questions. Quite frankly, at the start, my parents weren't too keen about me, flying off somewhere, going to Taiwan, and then joining a company there. And there's this whole idea, I guess, also about get a good job, get a well-paying job. And there are a lot of expectations. I think we definitely have to acknowledge it, and I think for the people here, if you are facing these situations, don't blame yourself. Sometimes it is about timing. I was lucky that I got the chance to do that quite soon after graduation. But it doesn't mean that for you, if this is not a good point, and that because of these other pressures, you want to take that step later, that's okay. And I think that is also part of the self-discovery and self-understanding that was spoken about, understanding how I myself react to such questions, and keeping true to what I want to get out of that experience. Yeah, and I guess in my case, it worked out. That doesn't always happen. So I am lucky in that sense. But I think really, for the people here, it's recognizing that yes, there are other pressures, there are priorities you need to kind of balance at different points of your life. But keep asking yourself, what would your pathway kind of look like? What are you thinking about? What are you interested in? How can you kind of get there? Even if it's slowly at different points of time, that's like totally okay.
Lovely, Sharon. Thank you so much for sharing. And the reason why I'm asking the panelists in different order now is because I know a bit of their background, dear participants. So I know that Sharon is an engineer, and engineers by nature think differently about a problem statement than a marketeer, for example, or a psychologist for that reason. So I'm trying to give you a bit of a flavor of everything. At the same time, keep on asking questions. Yong Yu and others, Jia Wen and so on, keep on asking. We will come to your questions in a few minutes only. In the meantime, I would like to ask Imran and Ning another question. Imran, were there times in your career where you were feeling lonely, where you were feeling, am I doing the right thing? And at the same time, were there times where you were exhilarated and say, I'm so much doing what I always wanted to do? Can you share a little bit about that and share how to deal with this when you are starting your career or even with when you're in your career already?
I think the short answer is yes, many times. And I think when you are stretching yourself to experience life, I think you will come up with the challenges which are commensurate to the kind of achievements and rewards you're looking for. So I think that's always indicative of that. I think the other part is that like there were points in time where being an entrepreneur is lonely. In fact, what I found is being the head of a department is also lonely, right? I think you choose your journey, you choose your lonely. Maybe it's not the careers, maybe it's just me. So I think a lot of it boils down to our personal experience. And I think a big question I ask myself is, what is the experience that I want to have every day, right? If there are some people asking very important questions, and if you're going to force yourself into a box and then you're going to experience sadness and loneliness and hating yourself and feeling like you're not good enough, and you're going to do that every day for the next 10 years, what kind of career is that going to be, let alone a life, right? So I think it's an important question to ask, right? And it's not just about passion, but it's really about what kind of life I want to live. And I think after going through a lot of sleepless nights, questions, doubts, failures, turnarounds, rebounds, I think for me, I think back to what Sohui was saying, is about having some sort of clarity about yourself, right? And when you have that clarity about yourself, it's not about this target or this goal or this income. It's about what is it that I want to experience. Because really, at the end of the day, I'm not going to end my life remembering that, hey, I am head of marketing. That is not what matters in life, right? But I achieved this, I experienced this, I did this with these people, and I did it in the way that I designed, ideally, right? So to me, that is what that journey is about. And again, I don't see it very differently between running my own business or in where I am right now. I do think that, especially for those of you who are entrepreneurial in nature, I think one way you could also consider is to go into this kind of route where there are certain growing startups. Maybe you could even have a chat with Sohui, find win-wins, contribute. Maybe you have options, maybe you have equity, and even my entrepreneurial desires, a lot of it was also fulfilled when I came here, because I was not looking for a job, but I was looking for a certain type of experience. And I think that they could also see that as well. So a bit roundabout way, but yeah. So there are many of these questions and ups and downs, but I think ultimately you got to ask yourself, what is that you want to experience? Because life is nothing but a culmination of every moment of your life.
So what is your advice if you are in a deep black hole? You feel you're lonely, misunderstood. We have participants mentioning that they might be diagnosed with autism or OCD. I mean, I have an answer to that, but what is your answer? And I would like to ask Ning then as well, what you would advise them in one sentence, Imran. What would you tell these people?
Find your fit. So, if you are autistic, if you're OCD, there are certain traits that you will do excellently, brilliantly, particularly well in. And you don't have to force yourself to do mediocre in another. So it's really about that.
Fully agree, Imran. Thank you for sharing. Ning, what would be your advice and what would be building blocks in anyone's career you would advise? Like build your strength, or would you work more on your weaknesses? How would you go about that?
I would say 3 steps, right? Like 3 building blocks. The way that I see it, the first one is really like what the other panelists have also mentioned, to consider the building blocks as a journey to learn more about yourself. And the purpose is for all of us to grow as human, right? After all, and to really discover, what you are good at and what you love to do, what you dislike, right? And don't be afraid to make mistakes as well. Because we all do it like at every stage of our career, at every stage of our life, right? So that's the first step. The second block is more on don't expect things to happen. Don't expect people to give you information. Ask for it, right? So at this stage of your life, be it you're changing or you feel that you have a certain gap to fill. Remember that every moment is an opportunity for you to learn from everyone around you, and also of course for you to share your experiences as well, right? So life is I would say career as well, to it's always an exchange of ideas, and you might not know where the idea might spark to, right? No matter what our title is, or no matter what kind of person we are. So that is the second one. The third one, the final one, is more on feedback. So what I find useful as a building block for my career is that there are a lot of people who are willing to help you, who are willing to also give feedback to you on how you can improve on. So be open to them, take what works for you, and really move on with what you feel best for yourself and your career path. Yeah, so I would say I will summarize it in 3.
Love it, Ning. So structured. Are you working in marketing by any chance? Very structured pitch. Love it. Shihui, what gets you out of bed in the morning? And you seem to have an abundance of energy, even coming across in this session. I have 2 questions for you. What gets you out of bed in the morning? And also, do you have moments where you realize that you have put a lot of energy in something, and then you have a moment of aha, saying, you know what, that's it. I will not continue this. I will spend my energy on something else.
I think I'll answer the first question. What gets me out of bed? It's especially difficult because my bed is just right behind me. I can just take a nap anytime, right? So, especially this year, and I'm not sure how, but I've been able to just wake up and then understand that I have something to do, and it keeps me motivated throughout the entire day to do it. And I think a very big thing that really gave me this motivation was to work on things that I'm passionate about every single day. Yeah, and really stay focused. I think this is something that I would give an advice that I'll give to delegates out there, right? For those of you who are thinking of having a side hustle or a little passion project, right? Because at the start, I think I had doubts, and because of that, I committed myself to quite a lot of things. And as a university student, there are a lot of temptations, right? A lot of opportunities that a lot of my friends have asked me to join school, and I did in the first year. But after knowing about Skillio and joining my co-founders in this whole venture, I realized that this is something I really enjoy working on, and we decided to then guys, let's work on this every day. So we'll meet every day at the end of the day to talk about what we have done, And when this structure is kind of imposed to the work we do, it just becomes like a habit. We are not doing the same thing every day, but we are working on it every day. And that's when you really sit down and think about how then you want to work on things and how to improve from where you are the previous day. Yeah, so I think that gets me out of bed. I wasn't really able to stay at my desk for more than like a few hours before this, but yeah, I'm pretty amazed of like how much I've changed, especially since now all of us are at home, and it's really easy, right, to blur the lines between like work and play. Yeah. Yeah, the second question was more about like what motivates me or
Yeah, when you have for people like us who have a lot of energy and we burn everything in order to achieve what you just shared, like I want to get better in this, I want to deliver something better to customers or clients, there is a moment of burnout. It simply comes because the tank is empty. What are you doing then? And are you reassessing the situation saying, actually, I have done enough on that, I will shift my focus? Or do you have a method where you can get out of bed 2 days later and say, okay, come on, second round, let's keep going?
Yeah, there are definitely days when I have to do that. And I find myself being exhausted, especially when I have to deal with school and like business needs at the same time. And I think I learned a lot about self-care. That's something that I've also been forced to manage, especially when we have brought on more interns onto our team. I think a very big reason is because when the leaders, right, when we are burnt out, when the founders are burnt out, there's no way we can delegate work to our members, and there's no way that they will feel like part of the team, right? They'll have ownership over things they're doing, and it's like it's like a lose-lose situation. It's not even a win-win, right? Like all of us are tired, we're not motivated, we don't know what to do. So a lot of times we do that for each other, the founding team. When we see each other being like very exhausted, we remind each other to take a break. We might remind each other that, I'm here, I can help you out for these few days, and we come back even stronger. So I think that's something that not only applies to just running a business, but I think in general, when we have members under us to take care of, I think the best way to take care of these members is to take care of ourselves first. I think that's something that I learned over the whole COVID-19 period as well.
Very wise words. Thank you for sharing. Sharon, for the people on the call who are not necessarily startup material entrepreneurs jumping into the lake of risk, what would be your advice for people to join larger organizations, established organizations, I should say? What would they find there, and what should they actually look for?
Wow, that's a good question. And it's something I also asked myself after I moved back to Singapore. Because at that point of time, I had only been in smaller companies and smaller organizations. And especially with large organizations, I talk to my friends and I hear about, there's politics, there's bureaucracy and things like that. And then I end up in government. But I think essentially it's, I think for me, what helped was at the end of the day, regardless of the size of the organization or even the nature, whether it's government or startup or MNCs, it's all about working with people. Even, as an individual entrepreneur, or even if you're in a team or in a division that is maybe say new and you're the only person there, you have colleagues, you have customers, you have suppliers and lots of different stakeholders. So I think if we kind of drill it down, it's all about people. It's all about working with people, understanding, empathizing with people, communicating with people. Sure, the specific content is different depending on what function we end up in. But I would say, look at it from that perspective, and then figure out what are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and what drives you. And then, relate it back again to to people. At the end of the day, I think career is as much about, our own growth, and yes, it's about survival and things like that. But it's also about being part of that community. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharon. I think it's time to look at the questions we are getting here, and I invite all the participants in our lovely video conference to ask more questions. And one question I really love here, it's about diversity and inclusion, isn't it? We love, first of all, thank you for asking a question when you actually feel like you're maybe on the spectrum of autism or you're OCD or whatever. My first answer I would like to give you is, this is your time. There's no better time for you in the job market than ever before. Why is that? I am working myself in a startup which is founded by 50% by people with autism. 50% of our are on the spectrum. Why is that? Because we are in data analytics. And you will know what it means to do data analytics. Your skills might be perfectly fitting, and this is according to the answer earlier, perfectly fitting to the needs in an industry or in a business like that. It's a startup, it's international, and we are dealing with data. So here you go. Do we have our weekly calls? Yes. Do we ask everyone to speak up? No. If you don't feel comfortable to speak, you don't have to speak. It's okay. If you are willing to share what you just coded, for example, or whether you made a great discovery, everyone will be very happy and applaud you, but no one will judge you for being silent. And I think this is, I have been working in many, many countries. I can see that inclusion and diversity is becoming more normal, I should say. And also to the question of if I have a medical report stating something like this, well, my answer would be, any organization who dismisses you for that, don't go there. Simply don't go there. They are not ready for you. But go to an organization which actually says, oh, you're on the spectrum, we want to talk to you. This is awesome. You might be exactly the candidate we would like to welcome in our team. I would like to ask the panel on their views. What would be your advice for participants in this call who feel that they are maybe ADHD, maybe they are on the spectrum of autism, maybe they got OCD, maybe they have something else, they have concentration problems, or they are work faster or slower. What would be your experiences working with candidates like this, and what would be your advice? Who would like to go first? Seems to be a good question. Yes, Ning.
I haven't actually worked with teammates who have autism or ADHD, but I do know that my company Google supports that, and we hold ourselves to that, and I really see that happening in the office itself. So I think what I want to emphasize here is also that find a company that suits you and value that side of you, and know that they create an environment for you to excel, right? So there are a lot of areas like what Leo has mentioned earlier, that you are able to excel, like data engineering especially, right? So specifically look for people in that area to connect with, or look for companies or people working in those companies and find out how are they doing in terms of their diversity and inclusion initiatives, and then learn from them, and maybe try applying to the company itself.
And how can you find out, Ning, if you don't have an insider in the company, apart from Googling it, but how can you find out whether a company embraces it or not?
I guess there are also, I would say, communities out there that they can join, that will also help to promote diversity and inclusion in the Singapore community itself. So from there, I feel that can be a starting point for you to explore within that community. There might be people who know of companies who are like that. So I will say that and emphasize that, network is your key asset. So feel free to tap into that. And, things are so accessible these days, right? You have your Telegram chats, WhatsApp as well. You don't have to necessarily go into Google to find forums, right, where we used to do previously. Yeah, so tap on those channels.
So I wanna pin on this point just for a moment. Ning is absolutely right in advising all of us to network, and not only because she's working in one of the biggest networks in the world, but simply this is the way of life. If you want to take away one thing from this session, write down the following: network or no work. Get it? Network or no work. Our society nowadays is more a networking society than ever before. And whether you are feeling that you are different from others or not, there is still a network for you. That is what Ning was just mentioning to us. It might be a very specific network for you. I mean, just think about professions. There's a marketing network, there's an accounting network, there's a psychologist network, whatever. Are these people feeling out of this society? Not at all, right? So network or no work. Fantastic. Who else? Shihui, I would like to ask you, you are working on a very interesting aspect in your startup. Can you share a little bit about that and maybe give tips to candidates how they could prepare themselves for their career, what questions to ask themselves, and how to prepare themselves for, you know, which company should I actually choose for and prepare for, and all of that in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think there's too much to share, but I think one main thing that we really value is experiences, right? And I think back to my point, clarity and identity, these experiences are core to increasing that level of clarity and of what you want to do in the future, and also your identity. So some of the different pieces of advice I would give to my fellow peers out there. One of it would really be then ownership. So taking responsibility to solve problems that you care about, and value add in your own capacities. So a lot of solutions out there for future problems are not really known yet, right? And I think a lot of companies out there, at least those forward-looking ones, they're always in the process of experimentation to find out how then we can solve these problems better. Yeah, and I think for fresh graduates, I think it would really, really, you really stand out if you were then, at the interview table, tell the panel what you care about and what you want to solve. So a lot of times it's not really asking for the solution and then you just execute, but it's more of them proposing, right, as a young person with a fresh pair of perspective and eyes, how then you can value add to what the company needs. Another thing would also then be honesty and humility. So this leads back to my point on clarity earlier. I think there are a lot of things that we don't like, a lot of things that we don't know. There are things that we like and we know as well. So I think it's really understanding and having that awareness of both sides of this and being able to communicate all these to the panel, right, or your future employers. I think that is something that I will also really value, right, as a very young person who is hiring as well. And there are a lot of things that we also hope to support these fresh graduates. If you say that, oh, you don't know this, but you want to join our company to then develop this skill set of yours, or you want to use this opportunity as a stepping stone for you to achieve a certain thing. I think this clarity is something that not many people have as well. And definitely the last thing would then be like the willingness to learn for those of things that you are good at, the strengths, even those people who are like then differently able. I think all these are form the core of your identity, and you shouldn't shortchange yourself of opportunities that can allow you to utilize these strengths to the maximum potential. So really articulate how then you can use these strengths to take up more responsibilities, value add to the problem that you identify at hand, and how this opportunity then allows you to gain that deeper level of clarity towards where you want to head towards in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Imran, there's a question about tools to recommend for more awareness of our growth. Well, I would like to expand, broaden this up. It's not only about tools, right? You have been in the field of learning for most of your career. And in particular, you were helping a lot of startups and entrepreneurs to grow. What would be your advice for an individual and then maybe for someone who joins a company?
What I would say is, in terms of personal growth and journey, I think there's nothing that beats practical experience and experimentation. So to the question of things like side hustles and all that, it's not about trying to do more to earn more. What you're doing is you want to work to learn, not to work to earn. So even if you're doing volunteer work on the side while you're doing a job, and even if you're taking on one board member, one volunteer thing and stuff like that, if you look at most of us here, most likely, I think that would probably be what Marcus kind of defines as a portfolio career, where you're looking at multiple things, and some of this could be paid, some of this could be community things. You will start to see that there are a lot of people who are going out there and executing and learning. So what I would say is the biggest thing is to do that. I think there are certain tools that you can look at. There's so many. DISC, MBTI. One tool that worked particularly well for me was called the Harrison Assessment. To look at certain facets of your skills, your attributes, your values. Where you are on the spectrum of certain things as well. Some of you guys are autism or OCD. I'm probably on the complete opposite end. No matter whether you feel like a square peg in a round hole, the good news is that there is a place for you.
Awesome. At this point, I would like to share a bit of my story with you, which gives you maybe a framework over 30 years of work. I started a bit like what Sharon shared earlier. My parents were very clear that I should, as a German, I should either become an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, or something which is typically German, certified and so on. I did none of that. I basically went into Ning's field of marketing and communications, and also in Shihui's field of organizational development and HR. And the first thing I didn't join a company after finishing uni, like some of us here on the panel as well, but I joined an organization. And I'm not recommending one particular organization, not even the one which is running this seminar today, but it simply gives you a different taste of life and a different view, something you might never experience again in the next 30 years. And you can do that for 1 or 2 years. And actually, this was my career entry to the graduate program of Mercedes-Benz at the time. I don't have to mention much about the brand, but it simply was a really state-of-the-art program where they trained us. I had a very fast career within this organization, and I didn't have this career fast because I studied well. I was an average student, to be honest. But I learned so much in these 2 years I worked outside of any organization, like a company in ISAC in this case, or whatever you choose. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about leadership. I learned a lot about cultures. I learned a lot about project management, and I failed an awful lot as well. And that is where I learned the most from. I think you hear this from everyone in this panel, that failure is a good thing, right? Just by nodding, everyone, yes, it's a good thing. Whether you fail as an entrepreneur or as a trainee or as a head of a department, you just have to make sure that it doesn't cost your job, right? Then I moved on, and then I realized actually Germany is too small for me. I want to go abroad, and I moved to Australia. I literally migrated to Australia and realized that all of my credentials from Germany were worth nothing in Australia. Nothing. Because the Australian job market at the time said, unless you have had your experience in Australia, we regard you as a freshman. Imagine coming as a very senior person from a big company. I worked for 6 years in Australia, worked my way up and went to India. And again, in this culture of India, I was a freshman. My point is, you have to be a freshman every 2 to 3 years in order to keep growing. If you become a super duper accountant, marketeer, or financial planner, and you know everything about the law for the last 10 years, that's great, but it might not be the step for the next job. Then I moved to Singapore, which I call home, but in between I moved 3 years to France for Airbus. Here I was with another company called MTU, and then I decided to leave And I left all the stability behind me. Everything Sharon shared with you, like a larger organization has processes, procedures, you know where to go, and a startup is lacking most of that, most of the time, and you have to build it. I left that behind. And why? Because I realized that at the age of 50, I need to prepare for the next 20 years. And I'm not preparing by staying in a large organization which simply believes we are too big to fail. And guess what? What happened to the aero industry during COVID in the last 12 months? Had I known that before? No, I didn't. Otherwise, I wouldn't sit here probably. And now I'm in a startup. We are struggling with cash flow. We're struggling with people. We're struggling with technology. But last night, we might have won a very, very big deal in the Netherlands after 12 months of working. Am I happy? I'm more happy than ever before, right? But I haven't been paid for the last 3 months. That's okay. So I guess what I try to share with you, and I would like to close the panel with your views, a quick 1-minute roundup. When you look back at your career, what is the one thing you would advise everyone to do, and what is the one thing not to do? Sharon.
Dare to jump in. It's scary. If it's something that you want to experience, and knowing that sometimes that might fail, but knowing that that journey builds you up, helps you understand yourself better, and I guess builds that resilience for you to kind of go on to that next stage where you're going to be a freshman again. I think that was really my journey and my takeaway, and that would be my advice really to people: dare to take that jump. One thing not to do, I still think it comes back to how to say, take care. It sounds like a to-do lah. Don't forget that you are human. At the end of the day, pace yourself. There are a lot of pressures. These are stressful times, and especially for looking for new jobs and things like that. So don't forget to take care of yourself, your mental wellness. Jobs, and sometimes that whole chasing, it can really eat into you. So find your support networks, take care of yourself. Don't forget that.
Love it, Sharon. Thank you for sharing. Ning?
Yeah, just gonna continue off what Sharon has mentioned, right? Sometimes, a lot of times when we first started out in our career as well, we realized that, you need to be perfect at everything that you do. So I think one thing not to do is to chase after that perfectionism. Because at the end of the day, you realize that excellence is very, very different from perfectionism, right? You can be chasing excellence at what you do, but do not chase after perfectionism, because there's no such thing, right? One thing to do is to really find work that matter to you at any stage of your time in your life, or no matter what you do. Because a lot of times I feel that a lot of people feel very stifled, very bored, or not challenged in their works because not rules that companies have set these days. But really don't stop finding doing work that matter to you. I think that's the most important.
Love it. Thank you, Ning. Shihui?
Okay, I think one thing to do, one advice I would give, since a lot of us are in school and then looking for opportunities, would be to narrow down from being more open to being gradually more selective. Yeah, so that's something that I kind of did at the start. So like at the start, a lot of my friends were asking me to take part in this opportunity, in that opportunity, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. So yeah, be open at the start, but towards the end, that was when I became more selective to then make sense of the experiences that I've gone through, and then looking at then, what I liked and what I didn't really like, and then being more intentional about picking up experiences that gives me more clarity. Yeah, so I found myself, reflecting on what these experiences mean to me, and asking my questions like, who am I? What am I here for? And does this experience then tie into that personal identity that I'm building for myself? Yeah, so that's one of the advices. I think one thing not to do would then be being overly indecisive or selective to seek that perfectionism. So I think it's similar to what Ning mentioned. So sometimes a not too good choice or a bad choice might be a good choice in itself, because it is then you realize what you don't really like, and it tells you how you can make some revisions to how you can make the decision better, right? And these interviews and exposure that you get from all these so-called bad choices are actually, on hindsight, might be quite good. Yeah. So I think all these different choices and decisions that we make are also part of the process, because they say excellence is like a habit, right? It's not something that you attain from day one when you make the correct choice, because it is a lot of choices along the way and a lot of practice. Yeah. So don't be overly selective, and embrace the uncertainty that you might get, right, when faced with choices.
Love it, Chihui. Thank you so much. So much wisdom in your answers. Imran, the one to do and the one thing not to do.
So I would say the one thing to do is to really commit to yourself and execution. So what I mean by that is that, after 10 years and having a Rojak CV, I asked myself, would anyone even want to hire me? And these guys looked at me and they said, we love your experience and we love your experimentation and we love your creativity and we want you, like specifically for you. We wouldn't hire someone from Lazada or Zalora or whatever. And looking back, I could never have planned it. But it was, to me, a function of just learning, experimenting, failing, and getting data points and moving forward. So I think what I wouldn't do, or what I would advise not to do, is to make the decisions out of fear. And the decisions out of fear could be, it's a first offer, it's a safe job, it is money, right? And whenever like those kind of conclusions came to me and I took those kind of decisions, normally ending up quite bad or in a negative result that I on hindsight look at it, say not optimal. And I believe it will be the same for most of us as well.
Well, you are just almost answering one final question we received. It's not in the chat box. I got it through WhatsApp. Victor is asking, what would you advise a young adult who has an offer for a role they are quite passionate about, but with really little pay, and an offer they are not quite passionate about, but are qualified for and with much higher pay? Sharon, which one would you take? Which one would your parents take and which one would you take?
Well, I ended up taking the one with the lower pay, but that's my journey, and I think just being very conscious that everybody's situation is definitely different, and I think it's a tough situation that you're in, and you really need to kind of look at what is important at that point of time to get you to that next point, because it is a journey. As much as we jump right in, we give it all our best and everything, it is for the long run.
Right.
So be aware of that, what is at that point and how is it going to help you that next point. And if that financial stability is essential at that point, then that is your situation, that is your decision.
That's a very well engineered answer, Sharon. Excellent, love it. Ning, what would you do?
Of course, the passion one. But like what I absolutely agree with Sharon, because I do have friends also who have I would say more of a financial situation, and they chose to take up a proper job right after graduation, right? And they go for the jobs that offer them the most monetary value. So it really depends on your stage of life and what is your situation as well. But for myself, if you ask me, I would have taken the passion route, and then at the end of the day, work towards what I really want to achieve. So that's me.
Thank you. Shihui, I think I know your answer.
but really, it's the fit, right, with what the job can provide you in terms of financial stability and the lifestyle that you choose. And as a very family oriented person, this has to be communicated with the people who are going to live the life with. Yeah.
That's true, which leads me to you, Imran. You have been at this crossroads many times, huh?
Yeah.
What would you do?
I think I would preface this by saying know what your outcome is going to be, and also know what your walkaway point is going to be. For me, I have almost always chosen the passion route. The months that I don't get paid and all that, I've been through that, and to me, I knew that I was trying to build a certain thing or experience a certain thing or achieve a certain thing, and it was not about, in this case, the income, right? So, but I think it again is a very personal decision. You need to know exactly what you want to get out of it. You got to kind of map out the scenario, and you got to know, hey, when is the walkaway point? Because otherwise you might kind of feel after too long in it, you feel it's a sunk cost that maybe was wrong, right? But you will never know unless you make that leap. But I would preface it with a certain decision making matrix there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, dear Sharon, Shihui, Ning, and Imran. It was absolutely love you. Yes, lovely to have you around. I think, dear participants, when you watch this or when you have participated in this, there are a couple of takeaways for you. And one of them is be authentic, be passionate, but measure against the outcome of what you want to achieve. And your career is a journey. That's what we all say. And in order to visualize that, because I'm in the field of education as well as an SMU professor, I would like all of you to take a piece of paper and draw this. This is your career, positions over time, and it's just a straight line. And once you have done that, I would like you to follow me doing this. It doesn't work like this, okay? It doesn't work like this. This is how it works. It goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. And it's all about learning. So if you have come here to get the one golden rule of how to succeed in your career, I think it's embrace good times and bad times. Find out what you really stand for, what you're passionate for, and where your energy comes from. And where you get energy out. This was my question about what gets you out of bed in the morning. Can't get out of bed, something is missing. So with this, I would like to wrap it up. Thank you so much, the four of you. Thank you for Isaac, for organizing that, and back to you. Bye-bye. Suparno?
Hello, you guys hear me?
Yes.
Wow, honestly, I was not expecting that last bit. I was like, when you showed me that first piece of paper, I was really, really ready to I was expecting that to actually be it, and I was very surprised when I had to throw that piece of paper away. It's in the dustbin right now as I speak, but.
Very good. Then draw your real career then. That's what you learned from the five of us today.
Absolutely. That was fascinating to listen to. Thank you so much, everybody. So we are now nearing the end of Career Care 2020. And before I move on, I firstly want to apologize that the Q&A, it wasn't functioning as well as we would have hoped. There were some technical issues with it. And as a result, some questions we could not attend to them. However, I think I can speak for these five individuals here when I say that if you guys have any questions, you can contact them on LinkedIn and connect them via other social media platforms. If you have any questions, any personal matters, you can just message them for anything, right? Yeah, so, okay, yeah, I got a thumbs up from Imran, so I'm assuming that's the case for everybody. But thank you so much, all five of you, for coming down and spending 1 hour with us here today, over an hour here with us today. It was absolutely fascinating to listen to all of your experiences. And yeah, we will now be moving on to the closing plenary. So thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody.